Yo, what's going on, guys? We are doing a macro guide real quick, so I'm just going to run you through some macros that I use on all characters. They're my specific macros, and then we're going to cover some gear as well. So let's jump straight into it with my generic ones. We've got a few things for my keybinds. So that's enemy target macro, no mod, modifier shift, modifier control. So I use the modifier macro thing here to basically make one key do 3 different things depending on the modifier. So here, for example, my T key, I've got this macro, allows me to basically pick my target, my enemy target, and then similar thing, I've got a party targeter here, which I put on X, which is this one down here, and this basically just allows me to cycle through my party. So X would be party 1, Shift X would be party 2, so in arena that's pretty much it. But then I also have party 3 and party 4 on control and alt, just for, like, I don't know, dungeons. Other generic thing is stop casting macro. So for me that's control 7. I use a Razer Naga mouse, so I've got 1 through to 12 on my thumb, which is why my keybinds are 1 through to 12, shift 1 through to 12, control 1 through to 12, and then some additional things like Q, E, mouse button, R, F, G, Z, V, X, and then just some variations and stuff like that. So pretty much anything on these keys down here, I use modify macros. But yeah, stop casting, really important, especially on Pres, important on all casters, but especially Pres, because you move our casting. After you hover, you move our casting, which means you can't move to cancel your cast, so you need a cancel cast macro in order to do that. Or just a slash stop casting, it's not a big macro. Anyway, Pres specific macros. First off is I use 1, 2, 3, arena 1, 2, 3 to use sleepwalk, and I also have a target bound in there as well for things like a demonic tyrant, maybe I want to CC that. So these again use the shift modifiers, control modifier, the alt modifier, and that's right there for you. This basically just allows me to put my sleepwalk key here, and I can sleep anyone in the game with it. And then a similar thing for my interrupt macro, I use target and focus. So I think 1, 2, 3 is better if you can get used to that. But for me, I like to set a focus, and then I can see their cast bar nice and clear, and I can track a specific thing. Sometimes in the game, I'll change this. If you have, for example, I should probably cover add-ons another time as well, but I use S Arena. Here's my add-ons real quick if you want to just screenshot that, take a look, download them yourself, have a play. But S Arena basically brings up these frames like this, and I use that to then also change my focus mid-game as well. So if you right-click those frames, same with the default arena frames, you right-click on it, sets focus real quick. Back into the macros. A lot of my macros you'll see are just at cursor. So this is what I call a fast cast. So a traditional cast, you have the indicator. With a fast cast, it just casts instantly towards your cursor. So I come from like League of Legends background. I play with quick cast on stuff. I don't really like to use an indicator. I like to just learn my ranges, learn my spells, and then quick cast off of that. Moving on, what have we got next? There's some just mess around stuff. My fly macro. So I bind Deep Breath and Dreamflight both to my Q key, and I also do a ping on the way. So whether I use Dreamflight with Shift Q or Deep Breath with Q, you'll see in a second. Loading, loading, loading. So this is again at cursor, fast cast, so it doesn't cast an indicator. I just click and it casts. There's Deep Breath, Q, pings on the way, and flies. You can spam that a couple of times. It's mainly for a solo shuffle thing. I like to think that it makes my team a bit more aware of what I'm doing, and it's just generally useful. One of my favorite macros, there it is once again, make sure you copy it. Just a little tip, show tooltip, that just makes it display on here as Deep Breath. For example, if I just left it as show tooltip and you had Dreamflight as your main one, it would display as Dreamflight, whereas you might want to display as Deep Breath. That's also why I have this additional bar on the top, which isn't actually any keybinds, but it's just so I can track cooldowns. So something like Oppressive Roar, it's up here twice, Nullifying Shroud up here twice, my kick up here twice. Just makes me see them clearer. Rescue macro, this is just a at cursor for rescue. You can do a arena 1, 2, 3 for rescue if that's the sort of thing you want to do, as in a party 1 and 2. I can copy and paste that. If you have that question, just drop it in the comments. Rewind, you'll see this on a few macros. So I have slash stop casting, then rewind. The reason for this is if you're midway through a living flame and you want to rewind, you can press rewind twice to stop casting, then rewind really quickly. I also have this for communion, where I stop casting into communion. And then a similar thing where I have trinket rewind. So if I'm CC'd, I can spam control equals, which will trinket me, and then rewind. So I can't get double CC'd. You know, they can't CC my trinket and then I miss the rewind. There's nothing worse than trinketing to use a button and then getting CC'd, and then you can't do either. It's like worst case scenario. Yeah, so that's those. What else? This is a sneaky little one. This doesn't really do anything, but it just yells to my team to stay in my line. I don't have this on a keybind. I just press it when I know people are going to line me during communion. This is another really important one here. So this is my stasis cancel or stasis macro. If you watch my part 1 guide, which maybe I'll link here, who knows? We'll check in the video editing after. You can cancel or stasis to make it proc it whilst you're CC'd. They've removed the ability for it to not consume a global cooldown, but if, for example, I press this now, I've activated stasis. Really important tip, do not spam stasis if you use this macro, because if I press it again, it will cancel this buff and my stasis will do nothing. But let's just do standard stasis combo is stasis, verdant, echo, and then dream breath. What this means is if I'm CC'd, or if I'm in deep breath, for example, I can now cancel aura and I'll pop stasis whilst flying. So cancel aura is infinitely better than recasting the spell, and you should use a macro like this. You can split them onto 2 different buttons if you want your cancel aura on a separate button. You might want to do this if you're a bit of a button spammer and you know that you're going to cancel your aura quite often. Another little tip is if you don't finish your stasis chain, for example, you stasis, verdant, echo, and then you get CC'd, can't use the dream breath, but your target's going to die, you can actually cancel aura and reuse that stasis while CC'd and just pop a verdant echo on them without finishing the chain. So that's a little niche tip where you don't really need it all the time, but it might save your game. Final macro you need to know, you absolutely need to know this one, and you need to copy this. I don't know how it works, I don't know how the cast sequence works, but I copied it off Sidu and it is the best macro in the world. Basically, obsidian scales, which is what people call your wall, that has 2 charges that you can stack. You can use both of them. So if I come here, no, wrong school there, obsidian scales, I can use 1, 2, and I've completely wasted the second charge. It doesn't increase the duration or anything like that, you just waste the second charge. So this macro, I'll bring it up one more time, copy this one, alright. This basically makes it so you have a lockout after using your first obsidian scales. So if you're spamming your wall, say you're in CC, you're spamming your wall, you want to use it as soon as you come out of CC, you'll only use 1 charge. You also can't accidentally press it again because you're panicking. So you can never waste your obsidian scales charges. So it's super, super useful. Just make sure you copy this. It's so good to use. I think that's it for macros. So yeah, let's move on to gear. So basically, we're here in the dummy room. I've turned my game sound all the way down because there's always people practicing their Beastmaster rotation. And it's really loud. So here's my gear. I've got 5% crit, which means I'm running no crit. I've got 24% haste, 65% mastery, 31% verse, and 7% speed. So that's enchants. Just I'll hover over my gear in a bit, so just make sure you're paying attention to those enchants, those gems. You can see how I've got this stat line. This then gets buffed by my first embellishment, which is Dragonflight arm guards. So these have a chance to proc extra stats, so verse and crit when I take damage, or causing critical damage gives me mastery and haste. So that's where my haste and mastery, not hastery. My haste and mastery can get buffed and be a bit higher than this during the game, which quite often happens. You'll quite often see the Dragonflight arm guards buffs over here. But yeah, my second embellishment is Inferior's Boot to Reprieve. So these increase my primary stat when I CC someone. I like these as I like to play aggressive. I like to look for sleepwalks and then do damage. So that fits in nicely with me. And also the primary stat's great for your healing over time. You can run different things like Silk Lining, which I've got on these boots, and Precog. So Nephi, the rank 1 Preservation Evoker, he actually runs 2 Silk Linings. Just to give more haste, more HPS. It's probably the most consistent healing output. But also he will drop 1 of these to run Precog and 1 of these when he's playing with 2 melee. So where he is the only kick target, take Precog and 1 Silk Lining instead. I personally like to run double aggressive into pretty much every matchup. I like the extra stat priority. And yeah, it's how I play the game, so it's what I run. So I'm just going to run through, well not run through, I'm just going to hover over my gear, take a pause, you know, look through the gear, see what I've got, take note of it. Basically what you want to do is just have a starting point, right? there is preference to how you play this game. There is optimal things, but also optimal things for you. So that sort of leads me into explaining like learning paths and development curves of how people improve at the game, stuff like that. Basically, where you want to start is your research phase, which is what you'll be doing now if you're watching this video. You'll be researching, you'll be getting a starting point. That means you can get your gear sorted, stuff like that. You can read through your entire spellbook. I highly recommend this, by the way. Read through your whole spellbook, understand all these spells, all these passives. Just make sure you understand your kit fully. Play the game, fail. Failing is improving, so play the game, you know, learn that way, and then watch again. Relearn from what you've watched, watch more guides, watch the same guides again, watch people's gameplay, anything like that. Then try and apply that stuff to the games again, so play more. Because what you've done now is you've played, you've failed, you can now watch stuff with the perspective of knowing the spec itself, which means you'll take in things that you didn't take in before. After this, go and watch more stuff, and it's that simple. You just play, you watch, you play, you watch, you record your own games, you watch those back, you compare your games to other people's games and what's going wrong, what's the differences, and that way you can build up your level of understanding and improve. So I'm going to be streaming my try hard rank 1 push for the end of the season, not in freeze unfortunately because I don't have a reliable team, but I will be doing it on solo shuffle, so I'm going to try and get to the 2.7 range, maybe a bit higher. We'll see how it goes. I'll slide my Twitch link up in there again, but thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow my Twitch. If you can drop a sub on my Twitch to support me, that'd be hugely appreciated. But for now, I'm gonna go play some games, and I'll catch you next time.